Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed over another pile of twisted metal in the riverside junkyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red, but he needed to find something valuable before heading home. His grandmother's medicine was expensive, and his part-time job at the gas station barely covered their rent. The 20-year-old college dropout had been scavenging in junkyards for months now. He knew which metals were worth money and where to find working electronics. Tonight felt different, though. Something was pulling him deeper into the yard, past the usual spots where he found copper wire and aluminum cans. As Marcus rounded a corner made of stacked car bodies, he heard a sound that made him freeze. It was soft, like a kitten crying, but deeper, more musical. He looked around, thinking maybe someone had abandoned a pet here. The sound came again, weaker this time. Following the noise, Marcus climbed over a pile of old refrigerators. Behind them, in a small clearing surrounded by broken appliances, he saw something that made his heart stop. It looked like a dragon, but not like the ones in movies. This creature was real, lying on its side in the dirt. The dragon was about the size of a large dog, with scales that shimmered between blue and silver. Its wings were folded against its body, and Marcus could see tears in the delicate membrane. One wing looked badly damaged. The creature's breathing was shallow, and its eyes were closed. Marcus rubbed his eyes, sure he was hallucinating. Maybe he had been working too many double shifts. But when he opened them, the dragon was still there. As he stepped closer, he noticed something strange around its neck. It looked like a collar, but it was made of some kind of metal he had never seen before. The collar was glowing faintly with a red light. The dragon's eyes suddenly opened, and Marcus gasped. They were the most beautiful color he had ever seen, like liquid gold with flecks of green. The creature looked at him with an intelligence that was unmistakably aware. It tried to lift its head but couldn't manage more than a few inches. Marcus knelt down slowly, his hands shaking. He had always loved animals, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. The dragon made that soft crying sound again, and Marcus felt his heart break. Whatever this creature was, it was suffering. He noticed burn marks around the collar, and the dragon's neck looked raw and infected. The collar was hurting it. Marcus had seen similar injuries on dogs that had been chained up and neglected. Someone had done this to the dragon on purpose. Looking closer, Marcus saw that the dragon was female. She was beautiful, even in her weakened state. Her scales caught the last light of the sunset, and he could see the graceful lines of her body. She should have been flying free, not lying broken in a junkyard. The dragon tried to speak, and sounds came out that Marcus almost understood. It was like hearing a foreign language that felt familiar. She was trying to tell him something important, but the collar around her neck sparked when she tried to make noise. The shock made her collapse back to the ground. Marcus felt anger building in his chest. Someone had not only captured this magnificent creature, but had put a torture device around her neck to keep her silent. He looked around the junkyard, wondering if her captors were nearby. The place seemed empty except for them. He pulled out his phone to call for help, then stopped. Who would he call? Animal control? The police? They would never believe him. Even if they did, what if they took the dragon away to some government laboratory? Marcus had seen enough movies to know that wouldn't end well for her. The dragon's breathing was getting weaker. Marcus could see she was dying, and the collar was part of the problem. It was not just keeping her quiet, it was draining her energy. Every few seconds it would pulse with that red light, and she would flinch as if in pain. Making a decision that would change his life forever, Marcus reached toward the collar. The dragon watched him with those golden eyes, and he saw trust there. She was allowing him to touch her, even though she had every reason to fear humans. The collar was warm under his fingers, and he could feel it vibrating with some kind of energy. He looked for a clasp or a way to remove it, but the metal seemed to flow together seamlessly. There were symbols carved into it that looked like no writing he had ever seen. As Marcus examined the collar more closely, he heard voices in the distance. Rough voices, speaking in what sounded like another language. The dragon's eyes widened in fear, and she tried to move deeper into the shadows. The voices were getting closer. Marcus looked around quickly and spotted a tarp nearby. He grabbed it and carefully covered the dragon, whispering for her to stay quiet. Then he climbed up on top of the refrigerator pile to see who was coming. 3 figures were walking through the junkyard with flashlights. They were definitely not human. They were taller than any person Marcus had ever seen, with gray skin and elongated limbs. They wore dark uniforms and carried weapons that looked like nothing from Earth. One of them was holding a device that beeped as they walked. Marcus realized they were tracking something. They were looking for the dragon. He climbed down quietly and crouched next to the tarp. The dragon was looking at him with pleading eyes. She knew her captors were close. Marcus made another life-changing decision. He was going to help her, no matter what it cost him. Carefully, Marcus lifted the dragon in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, but still solid and warm. Her scales felt smooth against his skin. He could feel her heart beating rapidly against his chest. Moving as quietly as possible, Marcus carried her away from the voices. He knew the junkyard better than most people and used that knowledge to avoid the aliens searching for her. He had to get her somewhere safe, somewhere he could figure out how to remove that collar. As they reached the edge of the junkyard, Marcus looked back once. The alien figures were still searching, their lights moving back and forth across the piles of metal. He had just stolen their prisoner, and he knew they would not give up easily. But as he looked down at the dragon in his arms, Marcus knew he had made the right choice. She was depending on him now, and he would not let her down. Whatever happened next, he was committed to saving her life. Marcus ran through the dark streets, his arms burning from carrying the dragon. She had lost consciousness, which made her easier to carry but worried him deeply. Her breathing was so shallow he kept checking to make sure she was still alive. The collar around her neck continued to pulse with that angry red light every few seconds. He could not take her to his apartment. The building had too many nosy neighbors, and his grandmother would panic if she saw an alien creature. Marcus needed somewhere private, somewhere he could work on removing the collar without being interrupted. Then he remembered the old auto repair shop where his father used to work. The building had been abandoned for 3 years, but Marcus still had a key. His dad had given it to him before the cancer took him, saying the place might be useful someday. Marcus had never imagined it would be for something like this. The shop was only 6 blocks away, but it felt like miles. Every car that passed made Marcus duck into shadows, sure that the alien hunters had found him. The dragon stirred once, opening those golden eyes and looking at him with what seemed like gratitude before drifting back into unconsciousness. When Marcus finally reached the shop, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the lock. The door creaked open and he slipped inside. The familiar smell of motor oil and rust hit his nose, bringing back memories of helping his father with repairs. When he was young, Marcus carried the dragon to the back office and gently laid her on an old couch. Under the fluorescent lights, he could see her condition more clearly, and it was worse than he had thought. Besides the damaged wing and the burns around the collar, she had cuts and bruises all over her body. Someone had been torturing her for a long time. The collar was definitely the biggest problem. It was not just a restraint. It was some kind of control device. Every time it pulsed, the dragon's body would tense up, even in unconsciousness. Marcus could see that it was slowly killing her. He tried again to find a way to remove it, running his fingers around the smooth metal surface. The symbols carved into it seemed to shift and move when he was not looking directly at them. The collar was warm, almost hot to the touch, and he could feel energy flowing through it. Marcus went to his father's old tool chest and pulled out everything he thought might help. Wire cutters, pliers, a small hacksaw, even a blowtorch. But when he tried to cut the collar, the tools simply would not work. The wire cutters bent when he tried to apply pressure. The hacksaw blade broke against the alien metal. Even the blowtorch had no effect. Frustrated, Marcus sat back and really looked at the collar for the first time. It was beautiful, in a terrible way. The metal seemed to contain swirling patterns of light, and the symbols were incredibly detailed. This was technology far beyond anything humans had developed. The dragon stirred and opened her eyes. She saw Marcus kneeling beside her and made a soft sound, almost like a purr. Then she noticed he had been trying to remove the collar, and her eyes filled with what Marcus could only call hope. She tried to speak again, and this time Marcus listened carefully to the sounds she made. They were musical, like singing, but there were patterns in them. She was trying to communicate something specific. The caller sparked and shocked her for trying, but she kept attempting to speak. Marcus realized she was trying to tell him about the caller. He grabbed a piece of paper and a pencil from his father's desk and started drawing the symbols he could see on the device. The dragon watched him work and made encouraging sounds when he got them right, painful sounds when he made mistakes. After an hour of careful work, Marcus had copied all the symbols he could see. The dragon looked at his drawing and then at him. She raised one clawed hand and pointed to one particular symbol, then made a gesture that looked like she was turning something. Marcus looked at the collar again. The symbol she had pointed to was slightly raised compared to the others. When he pressed on it, it moved slightly. It was some kind of button or switch, but pressing it alone did not work. The dragon pointed to another symbol, then made a gesture indicating he should press them in order. Marcus started to understand. The collar had a combination lock, like a safe. Press the right symbols in the right order, and it would open. The problem was figuring out the correct sequence. There were 12 symbols total, and they could be pressed in millions of different combinations. The dragon clearly knew the sequence, but the collar prevented her from telling him directly. Marcus had an idea. He pointed to the first symbol in what he thought might be the sequence. The dragon made a happy sound. Wrong symbol, and she made a distressed noise. It was slow going, but they could communicate this way. As they worked together, Marcus found himself amazed by the dragon's intelligence. She was not just an animal. She was a person. Her expressions, her gestures, the way she looked at him all showed a complex mind. She had thoughts and feelings just like any human. After 2 hours of careful work, they had figured out the sequence. 6 symbols, pressed in a specific order. Marcus's finger hovered over the first symbol, and he looked at the dragon. She nodded. ENCOURAGNGLY. He pressed the sequence carefully. First symbol, second, third. Each press made a soft chime. Fourth symbol, fifth. The dragon's breathing quickened with anticipation. Marcus pressed the 6th and final symbol. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the collar made a different sound, like machinery powering down. The red light faded, and Marcus heard a soft click. The collar had unlocked. Very carefully, Marcus lifted the collar away from the dragon's neck. The moment it was removed, she took a deep, shuddering breath. Color returned to her scales, and the golden light in her eyes grew brighter. She had been freed from something that was slowly suffocating her spirit. The dragon sat up on the couch, moving carefully but with obvious relief. She looked at Marcus and spoke, and this time her voice was clear and beautiful. She was still speaking in her own language, but somehow Marcus could almost understand the meaning behind the words. She was thanking him, then she did something unexpected. She reached out with one delicate hand and touched Marcus's face gently. Her scales were warm and smooth, and he felt a strange tingling sensation where she touched him. Suddenly, he could understand her perfectly. "Thank you," she said, and her voice in his mind was like music. "You saved my life. I am Zara of the Sky Dancers. I owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Marcus stared at her in amazement. "You can talk to me?" "The collar blocked my ability to share thoughts," Zara explained. "Now that it is gone, we can communicate properly." "You risked everything to help a stranger." "Why?" Marcus thought about her question. "Because you needed help, and I could give it." "That's enough reason." Zara studied his face with those incredible golden eyes. "Your people are not known for such kindness to my kind." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "The ones who captured me, who put this collar on me, they were working with humans. Your government knows about us? They are hunting my people." Marcus felt sick to his stomach. "I didn't know. I would never be part of something like that." "I believe you," Zara said softly. "You have shown me kindness when you could have ignored my suffering." "But Marcus, they will not stop looking for me. And now that you have helped me, you are in danger too." As if summoned by her words, Marcus heard the sound of vehicles outside the shop. Multiple engines, moving slowly as if they were searching. Through the dirty windows he could see lights moving in the darkness, Zara's eyes widened with fear. They have found us. Marcus grabbed Zara's hand and pulled her toward the back of the shop. There's a rear exit through the garage bay, he whispered urgently. We can get out that way? But as they reached the garage door, Marcus heard footsteps surrounding the building. Red laser dots danced through the windows, and he realized they were completely surrounded. These were not just the alien hunters from the Junkyard. Someone had called in reinforcements. Zara pressed herself against the wall, her scales shifting color to match the shadows. Marcus was amazed to see her almost disappear before his eyes. You can become invisible? Not invisible, but I can blend with my surroundings, she replied in his mind. It will not fool their scanning equipment, though. They have technology specifically designed to find my people. Through the front window, Marcus could see black SUVs parked outside. Men in dark uniforms were setting up equipment that looked like satellite dishes pointed at the building. The dishes hummed with energy, and Zara flinched as if they were causing her pain. Scan amplifiers, she explained. They boost the range of tracking devices. The collar may be off, but they can still detect my life energy from a distance. Marcus looked around the shop desperately. His father had always been paranoid about burglars, so he had installed more than one way out. Marcus remembered a tunnel that connected to the storm drain system. His dad had shown it to him years ago, calling it his just-in-case exit. Follow me, Marcus said, leading Zara to a corner of the shop where old tires were stacked. Behind the tires was a metal grate set into the floor. Marcus pulled it up, revealing a narrow tunnel that disappeared into darkness. Where does this lead? Zara asked. To the storm drains under the city. From there we can get anywhere without being seen above ground. Zara looked at the narrow tunnel with concern. My wings will not fit through there. Marcus had not thought about that. Zara's wings, even folded against her body, made her too wide for the tunnel. Outside, he could hear voices getting closer. They were running out of time. Can you make your wings smaller somehow? Marcus asked desperately. Zara closed her eyes and concentrated. Slowly, her wings began to fold tighter against her body. The membranes seemed to compress, and the wing bones telescoped into themselves like a collapsing umbrella. It looked painful, but she managed to make herself narrow enough to fit. I can hold this form for a while. But not forever, she said through gritted teeth. Marcus went first, dropping into the tunnel and helping Zara down after him. The space was cramped and dark, but it was better than being captured. They crawled forward as quickly as they could, Marcus using his phone's flashlight to guide the way. Behind them, Marcus heard the sound of the shop door being kicked in. Voices shouted commands, and heavy footsteps moved through the building. They had made it into the tunnel just in time. The crawl space opened into a larger storm drain after 50 yards. Marcus and Zara could finally stand up, and Zara gratefully allowed her wings to expand to their normal size. She stretched them carefully, checking the tears in the membrane. How bad is your wing damage? Marcus asked. Bad enough. I cannot fly properly right now. The hunters knew this when they released me in the Junkyard. They were hurting me, making sure I could not escape into the sky. Marcus felt another surge of anger at whoever had done this to her. Released you? You mean they let you go on purpose? It was a trap, Zara explained as they walked through the tunnel. They wanted to see if any humans would help me. You were being tested, Marcus. And now you have failed their test by showing kindness. The implications of this hit Marcus like a truck? They were watching the whole time? Probably. My people have tried to make contact with humans before. Every time we are captured and studied. The government wants to learn our technology, especially our ability to travel between stars. They see us as a resource to be exploited, not as people to be respected. They walked in silence for a while, following the main drain toward the city center. Marcus tried to process everything he had learned. Aliens were real, the government knew about them, and he had somehow become a fugitive by doing the right thing. Zara, he said finally, what were you doing on Earth in the first place? Her golden eyes grew sad. I was part of a diplomatic mission. 5 of us came to try to establish peaceful contact with your leaders. We thought if we approached your government directly and offered to share knowledge, we could create friendship between our peoples. What happened to the others? Captured. Taken to facilities where they are being studied like laboratory animals. I only escaped because my ship crashed during the capture attempt. I have been hiding in your cities for weeks, trying to find a way to rescue my friends. Marcus stopped walking. Your friends are imprisoned somewhere? Yes, and Marcus, they are dying. My people cannot survive long in captivity. We need connection with others of our kind, and we need access to certain types of energy that your planet does not naturally provide. Where are they being held? Zara was quiet for a moment. I have tracked them to a facility about 200 miles from here. It is heavily guarded and built underground. I was gathering information for a rescue attempt when they finally caught me. Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. You were planning to rescue them by yourself? With a damaged wing? I had no choice. I am the only one of my people still free on this planet. They had reached an intersection where several tunnels met. Marcus could hear water flowing somewhere nearby, and he knew they were close to the main drainage system that led out of the city. But he stopped and turned to face Zara. You're not alone anymore, he said. Zara stared at him. Marcus, you do not understand what you are saying. These people will hunt us with everything they have. They will not stop until we are captured or dead. Then we better make sure we rescue your friends before they catch us. This is not your fight. You have already done more than enough by freeing me from that collar. I can find a way to leave your planet and get help from my people. Marcus shook his head. How long would that take? Several months at minimum. You said your friends are dying. They don't have several months, do they? Zara's silence was answer enough. Then we rescue them now, Marcus said with determination. You know where they are, and I know how humans think. Together we might actually have a chance. Marcus, I cannot ask you to throw your life away for strangers. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Besides, they're not strangers anymore. They're your friends, which makes them my friends too. Zara looked at him with an expression of wonder. Your species confuses me. You are capable of such cruelty, yet individuals like you show such incredible kindness. Most humans are good people. Zara, the ones who captured you, they don't represent all of us. Above them, Marcus heard the distant sound of helicopters. Their pursuers had figured out they were in the storm drains and were trying to track them from above. We need to keep moving, Marcus said. But first, tell me everything you know about this facility where your friends are being held. As they walked deeper into the tunnel system, Zara shared what she had learned during her weeks of surveillance. The facility was called Deep Research Station Alpha, and it was officially designated as a geological survey station. In reality, it was where the government took captured aliens for study. There are at least 50 guards, multiple layers of security, and the entire complex is built inside a mountain, Zara explained. I have no idea how we could possibly get inside. Marcus smiled grimly. Leave that to me. I've spent my whole life figuring out how to get into places I'm not supposed to be. This is just a bigger challenge. But even as he said it, Marcus wondered what he had gotten himself into. He was a college dropout with no money, no connections, and no experience with this kind of thing. Now he was planning to break into a secret government facility to rescue aliens. Still, when he looked at Zara and saw the hope in her golden eyes, he knew he was doing the right thing. Sometimes the right thing was also the impossible thing. That just meant they would have to be clever about it. The drive to Mount Wilson took 3 hours through winding mountain roads. Marcus drove Jake's delivery van, which they had painted to look like a legitimate supply company vehicle. In the back, hidden among boxes of fake supplies, Zara prepared for the most dangerous part of their mission. The mining tunnel entrance should be about 2 miles from the main facility, Marcus said into his earpiece. According to the old maps, it connects to the lower levels where they're most likely keeping prisoners. Zara's voice came through clearly in his mind. I can feel them now. My friends are definitely inside the mountain, and they are very weak. We must hurry. Jake was monitoring radio communications from his workshop back in the city. Security chatter sounds normal so far, he reported through the earpiece. But Marcus, I'm seeing some weird electronic signatures from that mountain. They've got technology running in there that I can't identify. As they approached the facility, Marcus felt his heart rate increase. The main entrance was exactly as intimidating as the satellite photos had suggested. Guard towers, reinforced gates, and multiple checkpoints created an almost fortress-like appearance. Marcus pulled the van over at a scenic overlook about a mile from the entrance. This is where we split up, he told Zara. Give me 30 minutes to get their attention. Then start your infiltration. Zara emerged from the back of the van, her scales already shifting to match the rocky terrain around them. Marcus, if something goes wrong, do not try to rescue me. Get yourself and Jake to safety. That's not going to happen, Marcus replied firmly. We all go home together, or none of us do. Zara touched his face gently, and Marcus felt that strange, tingling sensation again. This time it was stronger, and he realized she was sharing some of her energy with him. What was that? He asked. A gift. If you are injured, your body will heal faster now. It is the least I can do to protect you. Before Marcus could respond, Zara had melted into the landscape, her camouflage making her virtually invisible. Marcus got back in the van and drove toward the facility. Trying to look like just another delivery driver making a routine run, the first checkpoint went smoothly. The guard barely glanced at Marcus's fake credentials before waving him through. But as he approached the main facility, Marcus could see this was where the real security began. Armed guards in military uniforms staffed multiple checkpoints. Electronic scanners examined the van from every angle. Marcus felt sweat beading on his forehead as he approached the final gate. Purpose of visit? The guard asked, studying Marcus's identification. Medical supply delivery, Marcus replied, handing over a clipboard with fake paperwork. Supposed to deliver this to the research lab. The guard looked at the papers suspiciously. I don't have any scheduled deliveries on my list. Marcus's heart pounded, but he forced himself to remain calm. My dispatchers said it was a rush order. Some kind of emergency replacement supplies. The guard picked up a radio to check with someone inside the facility. This was the moment Marcus had been dreading. If they called his fake supply company, the whole plan would fall apart. Jake, Marcus whispered into his earpiece. I need that phone hack now. Already on it, Jake replied. Rerouting their call to a number I control. Marcus held his breath as the guard spoke into his radio. After a tense minute, the guard nodded and handed back Marcus's paperwork. Okay. You're clear to proceed to loading Dock C. Stay with your vehicle and wait for an escort. Marcus drove through the final gate and into the heart of the facility. The surface installation was larger than he had expected, with multiple buildings connected by covered walkways. He could see ventilation systems that suggested extensive underground construction. At loading Dock C, Marcus parked the van and waited. Through his earpiece he could hear Jake monitoring communications. Zara should be starting her infiltration about now, Jake reported. I'm not seeing any security alerts yet. 2 guards approached Marcus's van. We'll need to inspect your cargo before we can allow you inside. One of them said. Marcus opened the back of the van, revealing boxes labeled with medical supply company logos. The guards began a thorough search, opening several boxes to verify the contents. Marcus had spent hours preparing fake medical equipment that would pass casual inspection. Meanwhile, 2 miles away, Zara was crawling through a mining tunnel that had not seen human activity for decades. The passage was narrow and filled with loose rock, but her enhanced senses allowed her to navigate in complete darkness. She could feel her friends' life forces growing stronger as she moved closer to them. But she could also sense something else, a terrible pain that made her scales shiver with sympathetic anguish. They were being hurt. The mining tunnel connected to the facility's lower levels through a maintenance shaft. Zara emerged into a sterile corridor lined with pipes and electrical conduits. The air hummed with electronic energy that made her teeth ache. Using her camouflage, Zara moved through the facility like a ghost. She passed several humans in lab coats who never noticed her presence. But the deeper she went, the stronger the security became. Electronic sensors covered every doorway. Motion detectors swept the hallways with invisible beams. Zara had to time her movements carefully. Slipping past the devices during the brief gaps in their coverage at the surface, Marcus was growing concerned. The guards had been inspecting his van for 20 minutes, far longer than a routine security check should take. "Something's wrong," he whispered into his earpiece. "They're stalling." Jake's voice crackled through the earpiece with urgency. "Marcus, I'm seeing increased radio chatter. I think they're running a more detailed background check on your identity." One of the guards was speaking into his radio while the other kept watching Marcus. The fake identification Jake had created was good, but it might not hold up under serious scrutiny. Marcus made a decision. He needed to create the diversion he had planned, but earlier than intended. "Excuse me," Marcus said loudly, approaching the guards. "I hate to rush you, but I've got 3 more deliveries today, and my boss will fire me if I'm late." As he spoke, Marcus pretended to trip over a loose piece of equipment. He fell hard, sending boxes spilling across the loading dock. Medical supplies scattered everywhere, creating chaos. "Oh no!" Marcus shouted. "Help me gather this stuff up before it gets damaged." The guards rushed to help collect the scattered supplies, and in the confusion, Marcus activated one of Jake's signal jammers. The device would interfere with their communications for about 10 minutes, deep underground. Zara had found the detention level. Her heart broke as she sensed the condition of her friends. They were being held in individual cells, each one designed to suppress their natural abilities. She found the first cell and peered through a small window. Inside, she saw Keth, a young sky dancer who had been part of their diplomatic mission. He was unconscious, connected to machines that forced artificial energy into his body. The process was keeping him alive, but Zara could see it was slowly poisoning him. The cell door was electronically locked with multiple security systems. Zara knew she could not open it without triggering alarms. She moved to the next cell and found Lyra, the mission's linguist. Lyra was awake but barely responsive, her scales dull and lifeless. In the third cell, Zara found Commander Thane, the leader of their diplomatic mission. Even in his weakened state, he sensed her presence and looked toward the door. "Zara?" His mental voice was barely a whisper. "You came back for us." "I promised I would," Zara replied. "But I need to know how to disable these cells without alerting the guards." Thane struggled to focus his thoughts. "The control room. End of the corridor. 1 human monitoring. Systems linked." Zara understood. There was a central control system that managed all the cells. If she could reach it, she might be able to free all her friends simultaneously. On the surface, Marcus's diversion was working better than expected. The signal jammer had caused multiple systems to malfunction, and facility personnel were running around trying to restore communications. In the confusion, nobody was paying attention to one delivery driver. Marcus slipped away from the loading dock and found an entrance to the underground levels. The facility was larger than he had imagined, with corridors stretching deep into the mountain. "Jake, I'm inside," Marcus whispered into his earpiece. "Any word from Zara?" "Nothing yet, but the facility's electronic systems are going crazy. Whatever she's doing down there, it's working." Marcus found an elevator that required a keycard to operate. Using another of Jake's devices, he overrode the electronic lock and descended to the detention levels. The elevator opened into a sterile corridor that looked more like a hospital than a prison. But Marcus could see the heavy security doors and knew this was where they were keeping Zara's friends. He heard footsteps approaching and quickly ducked into an alcove. 2 guards passed by, discussing the communication problems caused by his signal jammer. "Central Command wants all prisoners moved to the secure transport vehicles," one guard said. "They think we might have a security breach." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. If they moved the prisoners now, the rescue mission would fail. He had to find Zara and warn her that they were running out of time. Marcus and Zara spent 3 days hiding in the abandoned subway tunnels beneath the city, planning their impossible rescue mission. Marcus had never realized how extensive the underground network was. Miles of forgotten tunnels, maintenance chambers, and storage areas provided perfect hiding spots during their planning sessions. Marcus learned more about Zara's people, the sky dancers. They came from a world where crystal formations provided natural energy that their bodies needed to survive. On Earth, they slowly weakened without this energy source. Zara had been surviving by absorbing small amounts of electrical energy from power lines and electronic devices, but it was not enough for long-term health. My friends have been imprisoned for 6 weeks, Zara explained as they studied maps of the area around Deep Research Station Alpha. I can feel their life forces growing weaker each day. We are connected to each other across great distances. It is how we found your planet in the first place. Marcus had been researching the facility using an old laptop he had found in one of the tunnel maintenance rooms. The government called it a geological survey station, but satellite images showed far too much security for a simple research facility. Look at this, Marcus said, pointing to his screen. According to public records, this place has a massive electrical system. Way more power than any geology station would need. They must be trying to keep your friends alive by providing artificial energy. Zara leaned over his shoulder to look at the images. That would explain how they have survived this long. But Marcus, artificial energy is like eating sugar instead of real food. It keeps you alive but slowly poisons you. My friends are suffering. The facility was built into Mount Wilson with only a small surface installation visible. Most of the complex was underground, carved directly into the rock. There was one main access road that wound up the mountain, heavily guarded checkpoints, and what looked like helicopter landing pads. The security is too tight for a frontal approach, Marcus said. But look at this. He pointed to a series of old mining tunnels that showed on historical maps. This mountain was mined for copper in the 1950s. Some of these tunnels might still be accessible. Even if we could get inside, how would we find my friends in such a large facility? Marcus thought about this problem. You said you can sense their life forces. How strong is that connection? Stronger when I am closer to them. If I were inside the facility, I could locate them precisely. Then that's our advantage. We get you inside, you find your friends, and we all get out together. Zara looked skeptical. You make it sound simple. The best plans usually are simple. It's the execution that's tricky. Over the next 2 days, they refined their strategy. Marcus would pose as a delivery driver to get close to the facility during a shift change when security might be distracted. Meanwhile, Zara would use her camouflage ability to infiltrate through the old mining tunnels. The plan required equipment they did not have, climbing gear, electronic devices to disrupt security systems and transportation. Marcus knew only one person who might help them, but approaching him would be dangerous. I have a friend named Jake who runs an electronics repair shop, Marcus explained to Zara. He's also the best hacker I know. If anyone can build devices to help us break into that facility, it's him. Can you trust him with the truth about me? Marcus thought about Jake Chung, his best friend since middle school. Jake was brilliant with computers but also obsessed with alien conspiracy theories. He would either think Marcus was playing an elaborate prank, or he would be so excited he might do something stupid. I think so, Marcus said finally. But we need to be careful how we approach this. That night, they made their way to Jake's shop in the electronics district. Marcus sent a text asking Jake to meet him in the alley behind the store. Jake emerged 20 minutes later, looking nervous and excited. Dude, where have you been? Jake whispered urgently. The news is saying you're wanted for questioning in connection with some kind of terrorist incident. There are federal agents asking questions about you all over the neighborhood. Marcus's heart sank. The government was not just hunting them. They were trying to destroy his reputation to prevent anyone from helping him. Jake, I need you to listen carefully. What I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about the world. Marcus, whatever trouble you're in, maybe you should just turn yourself in and... Jake stopped talking when Zara stepped out of the shadows. In the dim light of the alley, her scales shimmered with an otherworldly beauty. Her golden eyes reflected the streetlights like a cat's, and her folded wings were clearly visible. Jake stared for a full 30 seconds before speaking. Holy shit. They're real. Jake, meet Zara. Zara, this is my friend Jake. He's going to help us rescue your people. I am? Jake squeaked. Zara stepped closer, and Jake could see the intelligence in her eyes, the obvious signs that she was a person, not an animal. Your government has captured my friends, Zara said, her mental voice reaching Jake as well as Marcus. They are being tortured in the name of science. Will you help us save them? Jake sat down heavily on a nearby crate. You're telepathic too. This is actually happening, Jake? Marcus prompted. His friend looked up with a grin that Marcus recognized. It was Jake's expression when he found a particularly interesting programming challenge. Hell yes, I'll help you. Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting for something like this? What do you need? Over the next hour, they outlined their plan. Jake listened carefully, occasionally asking technical questions that showed he was taking the mission seriously. Okay, Jake said finally. I can build signal jammers to disrupt their communications and security cameras. I've also got climbing equipment from when I was into mountain biking. But Marcus, this is seriously dangerous stuff. If we get caught, we're not just talking about jail time. I know, Marcus replied. But Zara's friends are dying. We might be their only hope. Jake nodded slowly. Then we better make sure we don't fail. They spent the rest of the night in Jake's workshop, building the equipment they would need. Jake created small electronic devices that could jam security signals and disrupt electronic locks. He also provided Marcus with a fake delivery uniform and identification that would pass casual inspection. As dawn approached, they finalized the details of their plan. Marcus would arrive at the facility during the morning shift change, when guards would be distracted. He would create a diversion at the main entrance while Zara infiltrated through the old mining tunnels. Once you find your friends, how do we get everyone out? Marcus asked. Zara had been thinking about this problem. If I can reach them and remove whatever devices are suppressing their abilities, we might be able to use our natural powers to escape. Sky dancers can become incorporeal for short periods when we are together. Incorporeal? Jake asked. Like ghosts, Zara explained. We can pass through solid matter, but only when several of us work together, and only for a few minutes at a time. Marcus felt a spark of hope. So, if we can get you to your friends and free them, you might be able to ghost your way out of the mountain? Possibly. But Marcus, once I find them, I will not be able to help you escape. You and Jake will need to get out on your own. We'll manage, Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. Jake handed Marcus a small earpiece. This will keep us in communication. The range is limited, but it should work inside the facility. As the sun rose over the city, they made their final preparations. Marcus felt the weight of what they were about to attempt. In a few hours, they would be driving toward a heavily guarded government facility. Hoping to rescue alien prisoners with nothing but improvised equipment and desperate courage, Zara placed her hand on Marcus's shoulder. I want you to know that regardless of what happens, you have already given me the greatest gift possible. You treated me as a person when others saw only a specimen to be studied. That means more than you can imagine. Marcus looked into her golden eyes and felt a strange sensation, as if something fundamental had changed inside him. We're going to succeed, Zara. Your friends are going home. But even as he said the words, Marcus wondered if he was promising something impossible. They were about to find out just how far love and determination could take them against overwhelming odds. Marcus crept through the detention-level corridors, his heart pounding as he searched for Zara. The facility was in chaos due to the communication failures, but he could hear guards organizing to move the prisoners. Time was running out. He found Zara in a control room at the end of the corridor, her clawed hands working frantically at a computer terminal. The human technician who had been monitoring the systems was unconscious on the floor, unharmed but deeply asleep. Zara! Marcus whispered urgently. The guards are coming to move your friends. We need to get them out now. I am almost through their security protocols, Zara replied without looking away from the screen. Just a few more minutes. We don't have a few more minutes, Marcus said. They'll be here any second. As if summoned by his words, Marcus heard heavy footsteps in the corridor outside. Multiple guards were approaching with equipment that sounded like gurneys or transport devices. Zara's hands moved faster across the keyboard, her scales flickering with stress. "There," she said triumphantly. All the security systems showed green lights. "The cells are unlocked." But as she spoke, the control room door burst open. 3 armed guards in full tactical gear pointed weapons at them. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them." Marcus raised his hands, but Zara stood slowly and turned to face the guards. Her golden eyes blazed with an inner fire that made the men step back nervously. "You have imprisoned innocent beings and tortured them in the name of science," Zara said, her mental voice reaching all of them. "Release my friends and we will leave your planet in peace." The lead guard spoke into his radio. "We have the subjects in the control room, requesting backup for transport to secure containment." But his radio only produced static. Jake's signal jammers were still working, cutting off their communications with the surface. Zara took a step forward, and Marcus saw her scales beginning to shimmer with energy. "I will ask once more. Release my friends." "Lady, I don't know what you are." "But you're coming with us," the guard said. Raising his weapon, that was when the real rescue began, down the corridor. The unlocked cell doors opened simultaneously. Commander Thane emerged first, weak but determined. Despite his condition, he was still a formidable figure. Standing 7 feet tall with scales that rippled like liquid silver, Lyra and Keth followed, supporting each other but moving with increasing strength as they got farther from the energy suppression fields of their cells. The guards in the control room spun around as they heard movement in the corridor. "Control, we need immediate backup," the lead guard shouted into his dead radio. "Your backup cannot hear you," Thane said, his mental voice carrying the authority of a military commander. "And you cannot stop us?" The 3 sky dancers joined hands, and Marcus watched in amazement as their scales began to glow with synchronized light. The air around them shimmered, and suddenly they became translucent. "Marcus, take my hand," Zara said urgently. "Now!" Marcus grabbed Zara's hand just as the guards opened fire. The bullets passed harmlessly through their incorporeal forms. Marcus felt a strange floating sensation, as if he was no longer quite solid. "How long can you maintain this?" Marcus asked as they began moving through the corridor. "Not long," Thane replied. "And we cannot take you with us beyond this facility. The energy required is too great." They moved through the facility like ghosts, passing through walls and security barriers. Marcus had never experienced anything like it. He could see everything around him, but nothing could touch him. They reached the main elevator shaft, and Zara turned to Marcus. "This is where we must part ways. You need to get back to the surface and escape while you can." "What about you?" Marcus asked. "We will find our ship and leave Earth. But Marcus, what you have done will not be forgotten by my people. When we return to establish proper contact with humanity, we will remember your kindness." Marcus felt the incorporeal effect fading as the Sky Dancer's energy weakened from their ordeal. He became solid again just as alarms began sounding throughout the facility. "Go!" Zara said urgently. "Get to your vehicle and drive away. Do not look back." She kissed him gently, and Marcus felt that tingling sensation one final time. Then she rejoined her friends, and they passed through the elevator shaft wall like it was made of air. Marcus ran for the surface levels, using the chaos of the facility-wide alert to avoid the guards who were rushing toward the detention area. His earpiece crackled with Jake's voice. "Marcus!" "What's happening in there?" "Every security system in the place just went insane." "The rescue worked," Marcus replied, breathing hard as he climbed toward the surface. "Zara and her friends are free? But I need to get out of here fast. Emergency vehicles are heading your way from the main road. You've got maybe 5 minutes before the place is crawling with reinforcements." Marcus reached the loading dock where his van was parked. The area was in complete chaos, with facility personnel running in all directions. Nobody paid attention to one delivery driver getting into his vehicle. As Marcus drove away from the facility, he caught a glimpse of something incredible in his rearview mirror. 4 figures stood on the peak of Mount Wilson, their forms outlined against the morning sky. Even from a distance, he could see their wings spread wide. Then there was a flash of light, and they were gone. Marcus drove in silence for the first hour, processing everything that had happened. He had helped rescue alien prisoners from a secret government facility. He had walked through walls and been kissed by a dragon from another world. "Jake," he said finally into his earpiece, "tell me you recorded some of this." "Every electronic second of it," Jake replied with excitement. "Marcus, we actually did it. We rescued aliens from the government. This is the biggest thing that's ever happened." "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now we disappear for a while. I've got safe houses set up, and I'm already scrubbing our identities from official databases. The government is going to be very unhappy about this." As Marcus drove through the mountain roads, he thought about Zara and her promise that her people would return. He had no idea when that might happen, or if he would ever see her again. But he knew he had done the right thing. 3 months later, Marcus was working under a new identity in a small coastal town. He had found peace in the simple rhythm of his new life. But he often looked up at the night sky and wondered about Zara. Then one evening, as he walked along the beach, he saw a familiar shimmer in the air above the ocean. A ship materialized, sleek and beautiful, landing silently on the sand. Zara emerged from the ship, her scales gleaming in the moonlight. She was no longer injured or weak, but radiant with health and strength. "Hello, Marcus," she said, her mental voice filled with warmth. "I told you my people would remember your kindness." Behind her, other sky dancers emerged from the ship. Marcus recognized Commander Thane and the others he had helped rescue. "We have returned to establish formal contact with your world," Thane explained. "But this time we approach as equals, not as supplicants. And we wanted to thank the human who showed us that there is hope for friendship between our species." Zara stepped forward and took Marcus's hands in hers. "We would like to offer you a choice, Marcus. You can return to your life here on Earth with our eternal gratitude, or you can come with us and serve as humanity's first ambassador to our people." Marcus looked at the ship, then at Zara's golden eyes, then up at the stars that suddenly seemed much less distant. "Will I be able to come back to visit Earth?" "Whenever you wish," Zara replied with a smile. Marcus thought about his grandmother, who had passed away the month before. He thought about Jake, who was already planning to document every detail of this new contact with alien life. He thought about the adventures waiting among the stars. "I'd be honored to be your ambassador," Marcus said, as the ship lifted off from the beach and headed toward the stars. Marcus realized that sometimes the most incredible journeys begin with the simplest acts of kindness. He had found a dying alien in a junkyard and risked everything to save her. Now he was heading to the stars themselves, carried by friendship across the vast distances between worlds. The young man who had once searched through Junkyard, scrapped to pay for his grandmother's medicine, was now humanity's representative to an entire galactic civilization. And it had all started because he chose to help a stranger who needed him, looking back at Earth shrinking behind them. Marcus smiled. He was going home to a place he had never been, with people who had become family through shared courage and trust. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but the greatest wonder of all was the simple truth that kindness could bridge any distance, even between species separated by millions of years of evolution. Marcus had learned that love and compassion were truly universal languages, understood by any intelligent being capable of recognizing them, and that was a lesson worth sharing with the stars.